temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
And Lord, we lift this up to you, an offering of our heart and our thoughts and our desires to live a life that pleases you. And we say, Lord, thank you for this day which you have truly made. And it is a gift, and we are grateful. Amen.
Well, you can sit, yes. In your order of service there, you'll find the words for the Lord is my shepherd.
Lord is my shepherd, but I want to follow wherever he leads me, wherever he roams. Over the mountains, waters and byways, valleys and highways, he's waiting for me. I want to go to meet him there, to lay myself down in his love. Lord is my shepherd, and I want to follow wherever he leads me, wherever he goes. While on the journey to where we are going, he promised to be there to help us along. Over the mountains, to walk on together, to know all the wonders he's given to me. I want to go to meet him, to lay myself down in his love. The Lord is my shepherd, and I want to follow wherever he leads me, wherever he goes.
Welcome this morning to Abiding in the Vine, and we're looking at the virtue diligence.
White switch. Oral-B Pro Health protects the outside of your enamel better than Colgate Total. Go.
Oh, that's not true. Diligence. You didn't turn off your device. I turned it off and it turned back on. The longer I reflected on this virtue, the more I realised how multifaceted and actually multidimensional diligence is. It goes so far, diligence goes so far as being equated in the scriptures and in the writings with faith itself. Faith itself. In fact, you've all probably heard of the 7 deadly sins. And this is a theory, that they were actually based on the ancient Greeks had 7 heavenly virtues. Charity being at the top, and diligence was one of those 7 heavenly virtues. So I have this theory that the 7 deadly sins is a postmodern concept built on that idea, the opposite, the direct opposite. But my point being that even the ancients understood that diligence in itself and faith cannot really be separated. But as I said, it's very multifaceted. Today we teach children to take care of their health. We teach them to be diligent in taking care of their health. If a child scratches its knee, we're very quick to wash that. And then we tell them, Band-Aid on it. Or we say to our children, brush your teeth first thing in the morning, brush your teeth in the evening. But how often are we neglecting our internal health? We're just not taught to look after our internal health. Jenny was born in New York. She grew up in New York. She was married in New York. And she ended up marrying a man who was quite slothful. Never helped out in their marriage. They ended up being slothful in a lot of other ways too. Ended up being quite immoral. And they divorced. And it took Jenny quite some time to recover from this divorce. Eventually she got courage up and started dating again. And she was asked out on a date by someone very interested. She was very excited when she bought a new dress. And they met at one of those little New York pubs. Sat down, had a little drink, and within 10 minutes the gentleman got up and said, look, I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. And he walked away. So Jenny gets on her phone and talks to a friend. And her friend says, well, I'm not surprised. I mean, you've got big hips. You've got no personality. I mean, who's going to be interested in you? And I saw that look. I saw that look. Now, is that the response you'd expect from a friend? Is that what you'd expect a friend to say to you? It's not, is it? And the whole story is true except that very last part. Because she didn't bring a friend. The conversation that she had about her hips and her personality was all internal. This was her own self-talk. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief. Oh dear. Because if you bring your friend, what is your friend really going to say? Well, he doesn't know you like I do. Isn't it? He's the one who's missing out. You're a beautiful person. And they list the reasons why he's missing out. But not so internally. Isn't it that our voices inside us are often the worst? They attack us. And they will tell us all the reasons why this gentleman got up, walked away, said, look, I'm sorry, I'm not interested, walked away. We have no idea why the man did that. It could have been as simple as something she said reminded him of his mother. We don't know. Actually, all the years that I worked with children in care, disabilities and therapy, I discovered how easy it is for a child to project. They will project on you. Something you say or do will remind them of a trauma of the past, and suddenly they're lashing out at you and acting out and attacking you, verbally, emotionally, physically, and you're wondering why. And when you eventually get to the bottom of it, you realise there's no correlation between who you are and the event that they've been through, but something triggered them. So here, in this case with Jenny, we see how her own internal health was suffering from a bad marriage. She probably blamed herself in a lot of ways for why the relationship failed. And here she was, finally getting the courage to date again, and when it didn't work, she was so quick to turn on herself. And what we know as new church people is that there's another engagement going on there, that there is an enemy, evil spirits. These thoughts we have that we feel are actually our own are actually evil spirits. But what it is, it's also a very good example of neglect. Neglecting your internal health. If someone starts feeling really sad, it's a very Aussie thing to slap them on the back. She'll be right, mate, it'll be okay. Walk it off, you know. And that can work too. You know, sometimes if you need to change your physiological state, something as simple as a walk can change your physiology. But that's not really looking after your internal health. That's not being diligent with your internal health. I mean, imagine somebody breaks their leg. Should be right, mate. Just walk it off. We wouldn't do that, would we? When it comes to our external body, we're very diligent. But even that, how long ago do you think washing hands was introduced as a health technique?
Last century sometime.
Yeah, 1846. Dr. Semel, I can never get his name right. Dr. Semel, he had two classes, they called them first class and second class, and the women were coming in, and there was a much higher rate of death among the women giving birth in first class, and everybody was begging to be in second class. And he looked into this, and he discovered that a lot of the doctors who were working in first class had also been working in autopsy, as he came up with a theory that cadaver particles were on their hands. Wash your hands. He was close. But he was also ridiculed. I mean, he actually, in 1 year, he dropped their mortality rate by 90%. And then the next year they had none, simply by washing their hands. But he was ridiculed later on, and it wasn't until, who was it? Louis Pasteur. 20 years later, came up with the theory of germs. And finally the medical system adopted the idea of washing their hands. Now I'm sharing this story to say how we can neglect, we can have a lack of diligence sometimes in how we look after our body. But today we're taught very well, oh, don't go into there without washing your hands. Or wash your hands, where have you been? Are you touching the pet? The animal? Go wash your hands. We do this, don't we? But when it comes to our internal health, we neglect. So let's begin. Diligence. Diligence keeps us from inconsistencies in our goals, our plans, our actions, and even our thoughts and feelings. We find the strength to do what needs to be done, but never half-heartedly. This virtue seeks to bring us into all forms of distinction. We endeavour for quality over quantity in all that we achieve, think, feel, and communicate. This virtue is marked by the absolute commitment shown by those who possess it. Where there is diligence, relationships will thrive, businesses will prosper, research and study will lead to wisdom, knowledge, and discernment. Discernment's next month, actually, the virtue that we do, which I think is wonderful. We're going to go out of diligence to discernment, if we are spiritually diligent. Diligence carries within it the reward of a job well done and the satisfaction that we have given our all. If we pause for a moment to think about it, you are all very diligent people in different areas of your life, isn't it? You've got areas where you're diligent. What about the areas where you're not? What might happen if you learn to pick up a new level of diligence? How much of your internal life is being neglected because you haven't learned to be diligent? To just get an energy, a habit, a character of let's do this every day. Or pick up a word, read it every day, or something like that. So let's have a look at the...
So just for you, I'm just struggling to... Diligence is not a word I use a lot.
Right.
And I'm just hearing you now talking about diligence in terms of consistency,
Right.
and perseverance. I think they are the two words which came to me. But I certainly am not used to
The word
the
diligence.
word diligent. No, I'm not. But I was very interested.
In the variance.
Think about it.
In the variance. If I said determination to you right now, Ian, and I said diligence, what's the difference?
Well, I guess so far I would say it's the carrying out of what you've determined. I don't know whether that's right, but that's what I think I'm hearing. The carrying out.
I think diligence requires determination.
Yes, I understand
That
that.
comes first.
That comes first.
Yes.
It did too in the dictionary as well. That's good. But determination comes, and then you become a determined person, but it doesn't mean that you're diligent either.
No.
Think how many people are determined for destruction, or the destruction of another, or the diligence carries an idea of duty. Even in law, we have due diligence. What is due diligence in law? It's trying to figure out where you've really, if you're employed by someone to do labour, where is the line between I've done my due diligence and I've been neglectful in my responsibility? I've been paid and I've been asked a duty and have I followed out that duty? Yeah. It's an interesting word, Ian, but Hebrews 11, verse 6 says, without faith it is impossible to please God. And those that come to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. This is why I really, when you look at diligence as a virtue, it really is a form of faith. It's faith being enacted out. From a spiritual point of view, mind you.
And maybe some love attached to diligence too.
As opposed to determination. That's a good point. Yeah, like determination is kind of raw, isn't it? Diligence has a...
sort of less mindful of being very focused. It's coming from the truth, wisdom side, isn't it? Straight line.
Ian, thank you for that interruption. I really appreciate it. Because it is a word, diligence as a virtue, it's a word that we don't necessarily play around a lot with. But let's have a look at the dictionary definition and its opposites, which I find so insightful. Do you want to launch out there nice and loud for us and read out diligence from the dictionary? You're not loud this morning? Andrew, are you nice and loud? You don't have to read if you don't want to, but are you feeling loud? Launch out.
Sustain your life. Take a moment to consider what area of your life would greatly benefit from the virtue diligence. What task would become easier for you? Could you find yourself gaining more time for rest, friendships, and hobbies? Definition: careful and persistent work or effort. Synonyms: alertness, earnestness, intensity, quickness, vigor, activity, application, assiduity, assiduousness, attention, attentiveness, briskness, care, carefulness, consistency.
Okay, just pause there for a moment. Does that bring out the flavour a little more in some of those words? Which one jumped out at you then? Application. I thought attentiveness was an interesting word for diligence, wasn't it? Because you can be a determined person, you can be terribly unattentive. No, we have an expression for that. We call that bullet gate. Someone bullet gate. Someone very determined, bullet gate, but they're not diligent. Because if you were diligent, you'd be attentive. What was that word used before? Gabe? Mindful. I think there's a lot to do in mindfulness. Diligence as well. And affection. Any other words jump out at anyone else there?
Carefulness.
Carefulness. That one jumped out at you, did it? Yeah, carefulness. That opens up diligence for you?
Yeah, well, what you just said about the bull at the gate.
Yes.
Well, like if you're careful, you're not going to go at things like a bull at a gate.
Right.
I would like to combine the earnestness
Yes.
and consistency.
Earnestness and consistency. Beautiful, Guan.
Constancy.
Constancy.
Yeah, constancy.
Yes. That's beautiful. If we just flip over for a sec really quickly to the back, go to the very bottom line of that first paragraph. Here, Swedenborg connects diligence with fidelity and sincerity. Wow. Being diligent in your marriage. Fidelity and sincerity. We'll come back and read that in a moment. So let's just go back. Any other thoughts on that, on the dictionary? Andrew, did anything jump out at you? You read it.
I thought, I was thinking determined in one ear,
Yes.
and I heard vigor.
Vigor.
And I thought, isn't it interesting, because both of those have an element of vigor.
An energy to it, don't they? A life and energy. And that's kind of like Gabe was saying. You start with determination, and then it matures into a diligence, a habit, a character. And that's why I see faith is very important in me, because why are we so neglectful of our internal health? I mean,
We have to learn.
sure, but you learned to put Dettol or Band-Aids on the scratches. You didn't let them just I mean, maybe letting them sit in open air is not so bad either. But you also learn germs, and you learn about that because someone like mum or dad were willing to teach us. What's gone wrong? That we are so emotionally, mentally, intellectually deficit. You know, that there's a rampant rise in mental illness in young people today.
Is that because we're taught that we should be giving to others before we give to ourselves?
Could be. I think you're onto something there. I think that's very wise. I think it goes even. I think you come further into the cure, but come back to the problem. People
Focus
can.
on self. Natural world, materialism. Yeah.
Even with all the growth in psychology we've had, which is, I believe, the Lord coming in and filling in the gap where the church has lacked. Even with all of that, people are still neglecting it because where attention goes, energy flows. We're not being diligent to our internal states. In schools, it's only now, and their efforts to address it is more, it's so skewiffed. Forgive me if you don't like what I'm saying, but school has become so much more a place for a girl to thrive. Young boys are not allowed to rough and tumble and play and climb and risk. Oh, that's toxic, don't do that. Is it? Is it toxic? Or is it that we have these different internal needs that need to be met? And so we think maybe if we teach boys to play with the dolls and be a little more feminine, they won't be so rough and gruff. You know what I'm saying? So that's today's effort to try and deal with our internal health. I believe we have robbed people of their spirituality. Haven't we? We've robbed people of their spirituality. We've told them you're nothing but a collection of matter. So why would they bother dealing with their emotions and their intellect and their thoughts? That's not matter.
I think we put it aside because we think we've got time.
Okay, that's another good one. We put it aside because we've got time.
Yep.
Isn't that fascinating? We were up in Mount Tamborine just Friday, weren't we, Ian? And we're looking at the tares and the wheat. And we looked at the idea that the kingdom of heaven is a seed. The kingdom of hell is a seed too, isn't it? And often the things that we neglect because it's harmless. We've got time. It's not an issue. And we neglect these things, and then we find out later on that the seed turns into a terrible, nasty, noxious weed, and it's robbing you of life, and it's whether it be criticism or resentment, unforgiveness, jealousy, it's grown into a full-grown fruit, and it's robbing you of life because it just started out as a bit of a nasty thought or whatever. Didn't give it any attention, did we? We neglected it. Well done. Let's, on that subject, go nice and loud for us, read the opposite of diligence. Opposite there of diligence. Starting with inactivity.
Oh, there we go.
Put your glasses on.
It's alright, I have to put my glasses on.
That's good. They're not for reading glasses. Inactivity, lethargy, carelessness, disregard, idleness, ignorance, inattention.
I would have said indolence, but how do you say it's indolence?
Indolence, yeah.
Indolence, yes.
Yeah. Laziness, neglect, negligence, thoughtlessness, indifference.
Thoughtlessness. Wow. Isn't that amazing? Aren't they really bring out the flavour and colour? Did something jump out for you while you're reading that other than carelessness?
Lethargy.
Lethargy, yeah. It's very easy to get exhausted and tired, isn't it? And that's the enemy of diligence. Anything jump out for you there, Ken?
Not particularly.
No.
Maybe inactivity.
Inactivity.
Something.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, when you're tired, a good sleep, nothing wrong with a good sleep. What does it say in Proverbs? A little folding of the hand, a little slumber, and poverty overtakes the man. That's interesting. Ian, what jumped out for you? Indifference. Yeah, indifference. We've become indifferent to our spiritual states, haven't we? What our true spiritual condition. cares? I got time. I'll worry about when I'm dead. Don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah, so we neglect these areas of our life, and then we wonder why it's haunting us later on in life. Yeah. Ken, you want to go on and read some quotes there, spiritual quotes for us?
Learning is not attained by chance. It must be sought for with ardour and diligence.
Yeah, we all agree with that. You want to read the next one?
Chaos is inherent in all compounded things. Strive on with diligence.
Wow. Apparently that was some of Buddha's last words, was to strive on with all diligence. But for a religion that's about inactivity and don't produce karma, it's quite an amazing last few words, isn't it?
Maybe he came to his senses.
Well, what about he says here though, chaos inherent in all compound things. Everything starts in a state of chaos. In the beginning,
Or simple.
yeah, that's good, I like that. In the beginning God created the heavens and earth. But doesn't it say that he brooded over the... Yes, and in Hebrew the word is chaos, isn't it? He brooded over the chaos. And so must we. We look inside and we go, darkness and chaos. Where do I begin? Where do I begin? And that's the diligence. We start learning to be diligent with our... strive on with all diligence. Go on, read. Ken, read a few more.
What we hope ever to do with ease, we must learn first to do with diligence.
Oh, wow. Like learning the piano or something like that. Whatever we hope to do with ease. Who wants our life to be ease? I don't think there's anything wrong with life having some more ease. Come on. We're all such soft battle soul warriors here. We're like, give me a hardship. It's like, no, we all would like a bit more ease, don't we? Yeah. I mean, that's where our modern conveniences come from. Washing machines, vacuum cleaners, all that. Goodness me, the day we used to have to wash it in by hand, sweep the floor, and we like our conveniences, we like ease. But we're never going to get to spiritual ease unless we are prepared to do battle with laziness, inattentiveness, carelessness, thoughtlessness, all those kind of things. Go on.
That's interesting, that quote, because if you think about it, we must learn first to do with diligence. To me it's saying, well, you've got to learn to love doing it, or like doing it, or enjoy it just for its own sake.
I think
Then
you're
it
right.
becomes easy. Because if you didn't enjoy it to some degree,
Yes.
you'd just be fighting it all the time.
Well,
there would be no ease in that.
There was a survey done among Africans in university versus American Westerners in university, and the contrast between them was so stark. A lot of these Africans who were in university loved it. They loved the opportunity. They were studying hard. They were working hard. They were getting a lot out of their studies and getting good results. And a lot of the Western, in contrast, were saying, "I find university so hard. It's such a challenging time in life. I'm not getting a lot out of it. It's difficult." And I can see what the difference is. You know, it's gratitude, or maybe this is an amazing opportunity I've been given here. So there's a kind of taking it for granted, isn't there, that pulls us into slothfulness and laziness. The diligent man or woman is someone who's gone, this is a privilege. This is a privilege. And they attack it with that attitude, and then suddenly it becomes a joy. Yeah. Well said, Gary, well said.
Sometimes the opposite can happen.
Yes.
Like as a child, I hated cucumber and olives, but as diligently eating them every day changed my thoughts. So sometimes it can be opposite to love. You can really, if something really fires you up, and you've got to, if you diligently say, well, why is it? Challenge that issue, then you'll see the opposite.
That's good. I'm glad you bring, there's a balance there, isn't there? I'm glad you bring that balance in. I know friends who were forced to learn violin as children and they hate it now. But they're gifted. But this is an example of victory, though. Sometimes the diligence pays off. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Go on, Ken, finish us those quotes for us. We've got a couple more.
Diligence is the mother of good luck.
Sorry, where was that one?
Diligence is the mother of Good luck.
Diligence is another good lady. Benjamin Franklin. Yes, the man who put a key on a kite to try and capture electricity. Diligent, all right. Wow. Go on.
That patience and diligence, like faith, remove mountains.
Now I like that because there's that connection with faith, isn't it? Patience and diligence, like faith. Like faith? Or our faith? I like that. And Charles Dickens?
I never could have done what I have done without the habits of punctuality, order, and diligence, without the determination to concentrate myself on one subject at a time.
That's mindfulness, isn't it? But these are all beautiful. These are all beautiful qualities, and yet what I'm seeing is the need to lift it into the spiritualism. The need to. Okay, so this is all good. Some of us have already mastered some of these skills, but what about our internal health? What's our internal health like? So let's have a look at the spiritual quotes. I'll start this one. Scriptural quote, Joshua 1:8. I put this in here because this is the scripture I chose for my day of ordination. I wanted it to capture my heart in being ordained into the ministry of the new church. Joshua 1:8. This book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night. Thou shalt make that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Wonderful. Think about that in terms of the inner sense. Meditating continually on the inner sense of the word and the success that we can have from meditating on the Lord's word in its inner sense. Proverbs 4:23. Keep thy heart with all thy diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Does that remind you of anything here? The words of the Lord? Cleaning the inside of the cup, not the outside? Or how about a man's not defiled by what enters his mouth? Out of the heart comes adultery, theft, greed, selfishness, all manner of evil. Okay, would you like to read some of those?
Proverbs 12, the hand of the diligent shall bear rule, but the slothful shall be under tribute.
Ooh, under tribute. I was talking to Todd this the other day about tribute because it was really bugging him that when Israel came into the promised land, they couldn't drive their enemy out. So it shouldn't be that way, he's saying, good old Todd. And we talked around that a bit, how, there are some, I mentioned tares and wheat. Let them both grow together until the harvest. Really? Do I have to put up with these tares? Yes, there's a wisdom in there. And then one of the things he discovered as he looked into it deeper is that those nations that couldn't be defeated ended up, the Lord said, they ended up being a tribute to Israel. So what this says to me is you're going to serve somebody, Bob Dylan. It may be the devil or it may be the Lord, but you're going to serve somebody. When you serve the Lord, all of creation becomes your servant. But when you serve materialism, you merely become its slave. You become its tribute. You become enslaved. Like Israel and Egypt, just become enslaved. So the next one, or did you want to? Yep.
Do not lack diligence in zeal, be fervent in the spirit, serve the Lord.
What does that mean to be fervent in the spirit? Yeah.
Energetic for me.
Energy.
Life.
There's a connection with the word fire in that word. Be fervent in spirit. Don't let the coals go out. Stir them up. Put another log on there. Keep your heart burning. Your heart passionate for the Lord. 2 Timothy.
Besides this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge. And then be diligent to present yourself approved to God as a workman who does not need to be ashamed, accurately handling the word of truth.
Nice. That's a good one. How easy it is to be slothful with the Word of God and pick
cherry pick the verses you like and to say what you want. And this is why even ministry and priesthood and all that stuff is so important, because anyone who steps into the priesthood or the ministry is saying they're going to challenge themselves continually in what they understand and what they know. You know, just because it seems right to you in the scriptures doesn't mean you suddenly teach that. You've got to be create a hypothesis and go and disprove it in the Word. Search until you get that confirmation. You go, yeah, this actually does line up. And then you go to your wife and you go to people like Ian. You say, Ian, what do you think? But you don't just cherry pick. That sounds good. That'll do. Because that's what our natural man does. It's very cherry picking like that. Be diligent to add to your faith virtue and virtue knowledge, and present yourself a workman able to rightly divide the word of truth. And that Hebrews 6 there.
We want each of you to show this same diligence to the very end, so that what you hope for may be fully realised.
Oh wow, that's not faith only, is it? That's not once saved, always saved. I heard a testimony the other day of a woman on Sid Rock, a woman saying that she was caught up and went to heaven, and then for a moment saw the Lord, and then later on she was pulled into hell. She said, my message to people on earth is that the biggest lie of hell is once you are saved, you're always saved. Interesting. Yep. She said it with great heart. You feel it in the heart. She was like crying. Don't believe this lie that once you're saved, you're always saved. We need to work on ourselves. We need to be diligent. We need to keep working on our salvation with fear and trembling. This doesn't mean that we're afraid of God. Again, I was talking about this the other day. When you're young, it's all about grace. God's grace. You're young in the Lord. Because grace is about the power of truth. But as you go along, you start to realise how frail life is. How easy it is to pick up bad habits again and act poorly and do things you don't want to do. You thought, I thought I'd left that behind me, now I'm doing it again. Gossip. How easy is it to say something about someone behind their back? Try and talk like they're there and see what comes out of your mouth. But it's so easy to pick up these old habits. And I think the longer you're in the Lord, the more you turn to mercy. Because mercy says to me, God is love. God doesn't want any one of us to suffer and go to hell. But at the same time, it's still our choice. Where grace says, truth, God is truth. And I believe in Jesus and I'm going to heaven. A bit too simple. A bit too simple. And as you mature, you realise, things come back and it isn't so simple. And I shouldn't judge that person because just because I haven't done that in 3 years doesn't mean I'm not going to do it again. Be diligent. Okay, so let's jump over and read the passage on the back. What Swedenborg has to say about diligence here in True Christian Religion 744. There are 3 things that flow as one from the Lord into our souls. Isn't that nice? 3 things flowing into our souls. These 3, which are one, or this triune, are love, wisdom, and use. Love and wisdom exist ideally. They're an idea. Existing only in the affection and the thought of the mind. But in use, they exist really. They manifest. Through use, they manifest. Because they are then simultaneously in the act and the operation of the body. And where they exist really, there they also subsist. Love and wisdom exist and subsist in use. But it is with use which affects us. And use consists in discharging the duty of one's office with fidelity, sincerity, and diligence. So when you work on yourself, your internal health, and you work on yourself spiritually, people are saying it's going to spill down into those external habits of diligence you already have. Be diligent to brush your teeth, be diligent to wash your clothes, be diligent to wash your body, be diligent to say, yes, sir, thank you, I appreciate that. No, you go first, manners like that. Then you work on your inner health, and it's going to flow with power into that. It won't just be a ritual or a duty. It will become, as Gay said, an affection. You'll do it with love and affection. And you'll do it with wisdom. You know, I don't want to eat my cucumbers, Mum. then wisdom comes as you grow up and you find yourself going, I'm glad I eat my cucumbers. And what was the other thing? Cucumbers and olives. I love olives, but I can understand you not liking them when you were younger. I can, yeah. Okay, so the love of use and the devotion to which thence arises keep the mind from losing control, from wandering about and absorbing all the lusts which flow in with their allurement through the senses of the body and the world. These lusts dissipate to all the winds of heaven, the truths of religion, and the morality with all the good that is in them. But devotion of mind to use, there's your diligence, devotion of mind to use, retains and binds those truths together and disposes the mind to become a form of wisdom from those truths. And then it drives out from their position of vantage, the illusions and mockeries of vain falsities. Wow, what a passage. I want to read one other passage to you before we read the card and say the meditation together. Ian, you go. Go. Yes, go. Yes?
When you actually come to yourself, the devotion of the mind to use.
Yes.
That strikes me truly as what diligence
Is.
Devotion of mind to use.
Wow. Yeah.
And I feel very much that's my best definition of diligence.
So you go away with
Devotion
it.
of the mind to use.
Devotion of the mind to use.
Imprint that on my
Yes. Wonderful, Ian. That's so beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else want to jump in there and say something about that? No. I'm going to read you a passage here. It could be a little awkward if we just... I don't want to read pages to you, so I'm jumping in the middle. It'd be a little awkward, but let's just say that Swedenborg's commenting on charity that lacks wisdom. What we think, this again is, we take care of the body, we neglect the soul. We neglect our inner health. So charity, if you just asked anybody walking down the street, what does it mean to be charitable? Who should you be charitable to? And they would say, be charitable to...
There you go.
The beggar. Thank you, Gay. Come on. The poor, the beggar. The orphan. The widow. And I'm not saying we shouldn't. We should, but what the Lord says, as you said earlier, be wise. Sometimes the very thing we think we're doing to help us is actually making it worse. Sometimes we've got to step back and be wise. So he's talking about that kind of wisdom, and he says here that they do not do good. The wise person does not do good to the poor, the orphan, the widow, and the strangers just because they are so termed. For they know that the good, whether poor or rich, are preeminently the neighbour. For by the good, good is done to others. And therefore, insofar as they do good to the good, do good to the good, they are doing it through them to others. So you could be doing good to someone who's not good. They may need help, but they're not a good person. You're doing good to them, and all you're doing is polluting the good. You give money to somebody and they say thanks, and they go and buy the next shot of heroin. That idea. They know also how to discriminate between one good and another, and so between one good person and another. They call the common good itself the neighbour to a higher degree, for within this neighbour the good of the greater number of the person is seen. Listen to this, the Lord's kingdom on earth, which is the church, they acknowledge as being their neighbour to a higher degree than even society. So thank you for coming today to church. And everyone else out there who's doing it, they're acknowledging that the good you do to society is one thing. The good you do to your soul when you come to church is higher. But he goes on, and I love it. That's why I'm reading it to you, because I want us to go away today with this idea of being diligent to our soul and to each other. And a way to view this. He says here, so those, the Lord's kingdom on earth, the church, such wise people acknowledge as being the neighbour on a higher degree, towards whom charity should be shown. And the Lord's kingdom in heaven to an even higher degree than that, people, however, who set the Lord above all others, who adore him alone and love him above all things, derive all degrees of the neighbour from him. or in the highest sense, the Lord alone is the neighbour, and so is all good insofar as it is derived from him. So what Swedenborg is saying to us is that as we grow and become more diligent with our spiritual states, we're going to learn to start to see the Lord in each other. I do good to Andrew because Andrew deserves to have good done to him. You know, he's a part of society. He's a part of church. And then I begin to see the Lord in him. And that's the highest good that we need to pay diligence to. That highest good, to bring the Lord out in Andrew, to bring the Lord out in Gay, and in each other. That's the highest good. And that's the best good that we can do to our own soul, our own health, is to bring the Lord out in us. Let's read the card. Diligence is the power to give one's heart and attention fully to a matter. Give diligence to make your calling and election sure, for thus shall be richly supplied unto you the entrance into the eternal kingdom of our Lord and our Saviour Jesus Christ. What a wonderful promise, isn't it? Can I be sure of going to heaven? Well, never truly, but if I'm diligent to love people and care for them, I can rest and know that I'll be received by the Lord and enter into heaven. And look what Swedenborg says here in Charity 139. So it is on earth, for in this way, an earthly society corresponds to a heavenly society. And when it corresponds, then what is divine is there, what is just is there, what is moral and upright is there, good sense is there, and diligence is there. Charity 139. So before we read the meditation together, is there any last thoughts people are having about the questions, comments about this virtue diligence?
I have a question about the first sentence of the meditation.
Yes.
I allow my heart to feel special in the eyes of God. How can I make a difference between this statement and another statement that never think you are special? You have a special relationship with God.
Because the emphasis here is God. So my attitude about healing, divine healing, is God always wants to heal. Body, mind and soul. Always. But I prayed and God didn't answer. Well, the problem's not with God. The problem is with influx, with the world, with us, with other things. How can you say that, Dan? Because of the nature and character of God. God is love. One, you are special. Because God made you. Because you're special to God.
I am special. Mm-hmm. Everyone is special.
Mm-hmm. Bingo. Yes.
When everyone is special, we are common. We are all common.
You mean if everybody owned millions and millions and millions of dollars, no one would be rich? We'd all be. So if I went and gave millions of dollars to everybody, no one would be rich because we'd all be commonly wealthy, sort of thing. Yeah.
But in that sense, in this sense, special is meaning unique. Uniquely important, if you like.
I like that one. There's only one. I like that, Dave. There's only one Guan.
Uniquely valued.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. That helped. Yeah, unique. We are special to God. The writings tell us, Guan, that when He made you, there was a need in heaven. What do we need? We need a Guan. That's what we need. And Guan was formed to meet that need. Of course, you're free to reject that calling. You're free to say, I don't want to be a part of that calling. That's what I love about the writings. They teach that everyone was made for heaven. People still go to hell. It's not God's will. It actually says in the scripture, God wills that none should perish. But people have free will. People want to suffer sometimes. Sometimes people want to hate, to resent, and to feel hated and resentful. I don't.
That's really interesting thing. God saw a need in the heavens
and made us.
He made us for that purpose, which we can fulfill. And someone will come up and say, well, I don't know what my purpose is. Yeah, but life will teach you. And if you make wise decisions, you will know sooner rather than later, or too late.
Oh, look, I hated mathematics when I was in school. I was good at it, but I hated it. I couldn't see the value in trigonometry. I mean, really? Then later on when I'm building a house, and I'm trying to get the angles right on the roof, or that corner, and it's like, oh. But see, these things, that's exactly what you're saying. Okay? God is taking us on a journey, and we can't always see what the reasons are we're learning these lessons. But they'll be very valuable. There will be valuable lessons later on. Is that okay, Juan?
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it up. I'm glad you brought it up. That's good. I don't want you to stumble over that. Any other thoughts or questions before we read the next?
Just one thing on that point. I noticed that this is not me, but often a person's use eternally is seen more in their hobbies than in their workaday work.
Oh, wow.
Because workaday work is so fixed. The interest that people have, which take them into hobbies, can often be a greater indicator of their eternal lessons.
Ian, I'll repeat that just so that if anyone couldn't hear that or if they couldn't hear that. No, that was great. But what Ian said was often our true eternal use is not the labour or the things you spend so much energy doing like work, but it's often hobbies that you picked up along the way, little hobbies. And we were talking about this the other day. Often the psychologist knows the very last thing the person brings up is the real issue. And so isn't it that we go through this life going, well, what's my use? But even in our things that we pick as a career, there'll be some wisdom built into it. But you're right, the hobbies speak more of our passions and who we really are. Yeah. Okay, so let's read this together. I love reading these sort of things together, the meditation. I allow my heart to feel special in the eyes of God. My meditation is upon how the Lord loves and appreciates all life. I always look for the best in my fellow human beings. I will bring no shame upon others, nor receive it from them. I acknowledge the Lord as the source of all worth and dignity. I am thankful, Lord, for the gift of dignity. It is your life and love that makes this virtue possible. I think I have a confession to make. Would you like me to make a confession? That was last month's meditation on dignity. So I messed up here. That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That'll make more sense if you meditate on it now. Dignity. God calls us to be dignified. It's still applied. I didn't have to. I just wanted to admit that. I thought I obviously finished the study and didn't change the meditation. I use the same format every month. I didn't change it. What would have I put in here if I'm thinking diligent? I would have thought I allow my heart to ponder upon the need to develop internal habits. I would say things like, I remind myself that God cares for my soul and my body. I take time to think about other people's souls and their bodies. They're probably the meditations I probably would have put in.
There's stick a T in there as well.
Was there T missing? Where's the T?
Meditation.
What is it?
Mediation. Meditation.
Well, it is a kind of mediation. There needs to be a
Don't
T.
try and justify it.
Oh, no. I'm not trying to. I'm just thinking providence. I'm not thinking justification. Like, I'm first to say I'm the worst speller on the planet, and I so value having Gay. She's such a good scholar. No. But where's the T needed?
The second one down.
Oh, this.
You've written my mediations upon how the Lord loves and appreciates all life.
That should be meditation. Yes. Yeah. There needs to be a T in there. There needs to be a T in there, definitely. All right. Let's close our eyes and pray. Let's pray. Say after me, Lord, we are grateful. For the ever-increasing light that you give to us. It helps us, Lord, to live better, to love more, and to enjoy each other. Teach us the path of diligence, Lord. To develop habits, to develop a character of caring for the soul. We thank you, Lord, that you are watching over us. And you truly are diligence itself. Amen.
So let's join with me in singing a new commandment, and we'll close the word. A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another, as I have loved you, that you love one another, as I have loved you. By this shall all men know you are my disciples, if you have love one to another. By this shall all men know you are my disciples, if you have love one to another. The Lord bless you, the Lord keep you. The Lord lift up his face upon you and shine upon you. The Lord give you his countenance, and the Lord fill you with his peace.
Amen.